It was chilly autumn evening when my friends Liam, Emily, and I decided to go camping in the woods. We had been planning this trip for weeks, a night away from the city, surrounded by nature. Liam had found a camping spot online, deep in the forest, where few people ever go. After 3 days, we arrived this place just before the sunset. The place was quiet, almost too quiet. The trees were tall and thick, and a small stream ran nearby. It felt peaceful but a little unsettling. We set up our tent, collected some firewood, and lit a campfire. As night fell, we sat around the fire, talking and laughing. The sky was clear, filled with stars, and for a while everything felt perfect. Then Emily suggested we tell us scary stories. We each took turns. Liam's stories was about a haunted house, and Emily's was about a ghost ship. We laughed, trying to scare each other, but halfway through my story, Emily suddenly stopped laughing. She was staring at the trees behind me. What's wrong? I asked. She hesitated, her voice barely a whisper.
I thought I saw someone standing there.
Liam turned to look but shook his head. There's no one there, he said, trying to sound confident. It's probably just the shadows. Emily didn't reply, but I could see she was still uneasy. I felt a chill run down my back, but I didn't say anything. As the night got colder, we decided to get into the tent and sleep. We zipped out the tent and lay in our sleeping bags, but I couldn't sleep. A little after midnight, I heard a faint sound outside. It was soft at first, like leaves crunching underfoot. Then it got louder. Footsteps, slow and steady, circling the tent. I held my breath, my heart racing. Liam, I whispered, shaking him awake. Do you hear that? He listened, his eyes wide. It's probably an animal, he whispered back, but he didn't sound sure. After a while, we heard something else, a whistle. It was faint, like someone was whistling a tune. It wasn't careful, it was slow and haunting. Emily sat up, her face pale.
That's not an animal.
She whispered. The footsteps stopped, but the whistle grew louder. I wanted to look outside, but I was too scared. Liam grabbed the flashlight and unzipped the tent just a little to peek out. What do you see? I whispered. He didn't answer right away. Then he turned back to us. His face was pale. There's someone standing by the trees. My heart sank. Who? I don't know, he said. They're just standing there, not moving. Emily and I crawled closer to the tent, opening to look. In the faint moonlight, we saw it, a tall figure standing at the edge of the clearing. Its face was hidden in the shadows, but it was just standing there, watching us. Hey, Liam called out, his voice shaky. Who's there? The figure didn't answer. It stepped back into the trees and disappeared. We sat frozen in the tent, too scared to move or speak. The forest felt alive with strange noises, the rustling of leaves, the crack of branches, and then, out of the nowhere, there was a scream. It was loud and sharp, echoing through the trees. It sounded like a person, but something about it was wrong. It sent chills through my entire body. Let's go, Emily whispered, tears in her eyes. We grabbed our bags, leaving the tent behind, and ran towards the car. The forest felt endless, every shadow watching us. Suddenly, Liam tripped and fell. I turned to help him, and that's when I saw it again. The figure was closer now, standing just a few feet away. Its face was still hidden, but I could see its hand, a pale, bony hand reaching toward us. We screamed and ran. The car was just ahead. We jumped in, locked the doors, and started the engine. As we sped away, I couldn't stop myself from looking back. The figure was standing in the middle of the road, watching us leave. And then it smiled. We never went camping again, and to this day, none of us can explain what we saw that night. When I was 25 years old, I decided to go camping alone. I had never done it before, but I thought it would be exciting. I chose a forest far from my home. It was quiet and peaceful, and I wanted to spend a few days away from everything. The hike to my campsite was long, but I liked it. The trees were tall, the air was fresh, and I could hear the sound of small stream nearby. By the time I found a good spot to set up my tent, the sun was already setting. After setting up my tent, I made a small fire. I sat next to it, eating snacks and enjoying the silence. Everything felt perfect, but as the sky got darker, I started feeling uneasy. I couldn't explain why. The forest felt too quiet, like it was waiting for someone. After a while, I heard a whistle. It was soft and far away. At first, I thought it was just the wind, but it came again. It sounded like someone was whistling a slow tune. I looked around with my flashlight, but I saw nothing. Hello? I called out, but no one answered. The whistle stopped. I told myself it was just my imagination and went back to the fire. After a while, I felt better and decided to go sleep. In the middle of the night, I woke up to a sound. It was footsteps, slow and heavy, right outside my tent. My heart started beating fast. I didn't move, I just listened. The footsteps circling my tent, and then it stopped. Who's there? I said, trying to sound brave, but my voice was shaking. There was no answer. For a few minutes, everything was silent. Then I heard a whisper. It was low and rough, like someone was speaking right next to the tent. You shouldn't be here. I froze. My hands were shaking so much I couldn't even grab my flashlight. I wanted to run, but I couldn't move. After a while, I didn't hear anything else. I sat there in the dark, too scared to sleep. When the sun finally came up, I unzipped my tent and stepped outside. The first thing I noticed were footprints in the dirt. They were all around my tent, but they weren't mine. They looked like they were belonged to someone barefoot. I packed my things quickly, ready to leave, but as I was rolling up my tent, I noticed something strange. A little way off in the woods, there was a circle of rocks on the ground, and in the middle, ashes from a fire. There were strange shapes carved into the rocks, like symbols I didn't understand. I didn't want to stay there any longer. I grabbed my bag and started walking back to my car as fast as I could. But the whole time, I felt like someone was watching me. I heard branches snapping and leaves rustling behind me, but when I looked back, there was no one there. When I finally reached my car, I jumped in and locked the doors. I started the engine and looked in the mirror. At the edge of the trees, I saw a man. He wasn't moving, just standing there and watching me. His clothes were dirty and his face looked pale, almost grey. It was a nice smile. It was creepy, like he was happy I was scared. I drove away as fast as I could and never went back to those woods. Even now, I think about him sometimes. Who was he? What did he want? And why did he tell me I shouldn't be here? If you ever go camping alone, be careful. You never know who or what you might be meet.